Namaskar friends, welcome to the session 27 in our course on work system design, and currently we are in the 6th week of our discussion on this topic. And if you remember, in the previous session we have started our discussion related to string diagram. So basically we are trying to understand the various tools and techniques that can be used to conduct a method study in a systematic manner. And which are the techniques that we have learnt till date? We have understood the operation process chart, we know the flow process chart, we have seen the multi activity chart, we have seen two-handed process chart, we have seen flow diagrams, string diagrams, and today the title is Principles of Motion Economy. So why we are learning all these tools and techniques? Because we want to observe, we want to record the current method of doing the job or doing the work. Then we want to examine it, we want to find out that can there be a better method of doing the same job, can there be a better technique which can help the worker reduce his fatigue, which can help the worker improve his productivity, which can help the worker in improving his efficiency. So we are trying to learn tools and techniques which are helpful in conducting these types of studies. Today the title is Principles of Motion Economy. And in Principles of Motion Economy, there are three broad areas in which these principles have been developed. Very quickly we will try to have a brief review or brief historical review that how these principles were developed. But before going to that or prior to that, we need to understand that why these principles have been developed. So if we take the example of this recording studio, there are three important things which are important, or there are three important things which we need to pay attention. First one is, I am as a speaker, I am speaking in this studio. So human body is one thing. Second is the environment that is being provided, the workspace or arrangement of the workspace. For example, we have a dais here, there is a display, then there is a camera, then there is a recording room adjacent to this room. So this is the workplace in which we are working. Then the third is the equipment that we are operating. I am operating this pen with which I am highlighting the things that I want to highlight. I am using a pointer, I am using it to change the slides. There is a provision to change the slides here also. I can show you, we can change. The next slide has come on your screen. I want to go to the previous slide, it has gone to the previous slide. So this is the equipment that I am operating. So we have three stakeholders basically. The first one is the human, whenever some work is being done. And what is the work? The work is the recording of this lecture that is going on, or the recording of this discussion that is going on. So the human body is one part, the arrangement of the workspace is another second part, and third part is the equipment that we are using. Now if the three are in synchronization, if three are going to help each other or work in synergy, the overall output will be better. But if they are not in synergy, they are not helping each other. For example, human body wants comfortable environment, but the air conditioning equipment is out of order. So the arrangement of the workspace is such that I am not feeling comfortable, human body is not feeling comfortable because of non-functional air conditioner. So there is a repulsive effect between the two, and therefore the quality of the lecture delivery will suffer, or we can summarize that the output will not be as desirable or as desired. So there has to be complete sync between these three stakeholders. The equipment, for example, I want to highlight something on the dashboard or maybe on the display board, but the pen is not working. So the equipment is faulty, I may not be able to explain the things in the better manner. So all these three things have to function in synergy. So what are the three things? Once again, the human body, the workplace arrangement, and the equipment that we are using. So the principles of motion economy focus on these three things, that is the use of the human body, then the arrangement of the workplace, and the designs of tool and equipment must be such that the worker feels comfortable in performing his or her task. So if all these three things are taken care of, or if we follow the principles which have been laid out for the arrangement of the workplace, for the use of the human body, for the design of tools and equipment, automatically the system will perform better. And in today's session, it is difficult to explain each and every principle. So I will read the principles for you. There are number of examples available in various books. We have to summarize this topic in half an hour. So that is difficult from the point of view of explaining each and every principle with the help of an example. But as a learner, you must know that what is the importance of principles of motion economy in the design of the work system. We need to design the workplace in such a way that the human body feels comfortable, and the equipment that the worker is operating also helps him in achieving his target or achieving his objective or completing the work in the most economical and efficient manner. So how the principles of motion economy were developed, let us quickly go to that. So there are number of principles concerning the economy of movements. So before going to the economy of movements, let us first focus on principles of motion economy. So if we go by the literal meaning of this, it means that we want to economize the motions being done by the worker. We want to optimize, we want to maybe set the optimal combination or optimal sequence of functions or optimal sequence of motions which will help the worker to complete his or her task. So we are trying to economize the motions, and these principles will help us in that objective. So there are number of principles which we will see in the subsequent slides concerning the economy of movement. So we want to economize the movement, that may be the movement of the hands or the movement of the limb or the movement of the worker, which have been developed as a result of experience and which form a good basis for the development of an improved method at the workplace. So our overall objective is to find out an improved method at the workplace. So again I will read this is an important sentence. There are number of principles concerning the economy of movements which have been developed as a result of experience, which form a good basis for the development of improved method at the workplace. So these are the principles which have been developed with lot of experience. And who are the people who were responsible for the development of these principles? These were first used by Frank Gilbreth, the founder of motion economy, and further rearranged and amplified by Barnes and Maynard and others. So there are number of researchers who have worked and who have used their experience, who have used their intellect to develop these principles, and these principles form a sound, we can say, background for improving the current method of doing our work. So if we follow these principles and analyze the current method, certainly they will guide us, they will advise us in the right direction, and if we use this principle, we will definitely be able to economize the movements of the worker in the shop floor. Now motion economy helps to achieve productivity and reduce cumulative trauma. We will see this cumulative trauma thing in slightly more detail in the subsequent session. So what is cumulative trauma? It is excessive wear and tear on tendons, muscles and sensitive nerve tissue. So if we follow these principles, all these things, that is cumulative trauma that is experienced by the worker doing the repetitive task again and again, that can be minimized. So motion economy helps to achieve productivity and reduce the cumulative trauma that is resultant of the repetitive work being done by the worker on the shop floor. The principles of motion economy eliminate unnecessary motion. So unnecessary motion is avoided, ease the operator tasks. So the tasks that the operator is doing becomes easier, reduce the fatigue and minimize the cumulative trauma, which we have already seen. So the cumulative trauma is avoided. So we can see what we are gaining: eliminate the unnecessary motion, ease the operator's task, reduce the fatigue, minimize the cumulative trauma. So there are number of advantages if we follow the principles of motion economy. Now what are these? That we will try to understand in the subsequent slides. The principles of motion economy are guidelines to be used when examining and designing the workstation. Guidelines to be used when examining and designing the workstation and the workplace layouts. So you can see that when we have to apply the principles, when we are designing the workstation, when we are analyzing the current method which the workers are following, sometimes we may be able to observe the worker that how he is doing the task. Is it in line with the principles of motion economy? If there is a discrepancy, we can advise the worker that no, this is not the right way of performing this task. As per the principles of motion economy, you must perform the task in this standard manner, or we can try to help the organization in changing the layout, or we can help the organization in changing the workplace environment. Maybe we may like to advise them regarding the illumination, that the illumination is not proper, we must put additional lights so that the worker is able to work efficiently. So basically these will help us in designing our workstation. The principles are based on the combination of simple ergonomic principles and common sense. So that is what are the basis for developing these principles. First is ergonomic, so that is how to expend our energy in the most economical manner. That is one guideline, that we must try to economize the energy being expended by the worker who is performing the job or at the workplace or on the machine. These are related to both the design of the workplace and the design of the work. So we can focus on both. We can focus on design of the workplace, we can also focus on design of the work. So both can be achieved, or both can be targeted using the principles of motion economy. So I think the things are slightly getting maybe more theoretical. So if we jump on to the principles, you will be able to appreciate that yes, these are the principles. If we follow them, then automatically the objectives that are there, that is the operator, the work becomes easier for the operator, the workstation is designed in the most economical manner. So we have seen unnecessary movements are avoided, the cumulative trauma is avoided. So when we look at the principles, you will automatically start to realize that yes, if we follow these principles, certainly the work will become easier and enjoyable for the workers. Now basically the principles of motion economy are divided into three. So I started the today's discussion with the three major elements of any work that is being done with the example of this recording studio. So again coming back to that, what are the three subdivisions? First one is the use of the human body. Second one is the arrangement of the workplace, as I have taken this is the arrangement of the workplace. Third one is the design of the tools and equipment, as I have shown that I can change the slide by pressing the point here also, or I can change the slide using this pointer also. This is the equipment which has been given to me to deliver this session. So this is a workplace, equipment and the human body. So when we are trying to optimize the work being done, or when we are trying to redesign the work being done, when we are trying to find out the better method of doing the work, these are the three important things on which we have to focus. Now let us see one by one. First one is the use of the human body. What are the principles that have to be kept in mind when we are designing the work for the worker? So how the human body must be used when we are performing the task? Let us see here. If you, this is a good example given here, use of human body. A weightlifter is lifting the heavy load. So if you can see that there is a standard technique by which the lifter must lift the load. If he falters or if there is a mistake, it may lead to a very heavy injury also, or maybe a very severe injury can be there. So that can be avoided if you follow the protocol, if you use your body in the prescribed manner only. So as per the principles of motion economy, we can see the two hands must begin and complete their motion at the same time. So this is the first principle. If two hands are being used for conducting a work, so they must start and finish their motions at the same time. Two hands should not be idle at the same time. So if you see, I am recording this lecture, if my one hand is at rest, the second one I am using to highlight what we are discussing. So the two hands must not be idle at the same time when the worker is on the shop floor. Is both hands must start and finish at the same time, and at any time interval one hand must always be working. Motions of the arms must be made in the opposite and symmetrical direction and should be made simultaneously. This is another guideline regarding the motion of the arms. If you remember, we have taken an example of the assembly of nut and bolt with the two hand process chart. So there you can see when a person is going to assemble the nuts and bolts, how his human body must be used, what type of motions must be given to both the hands. They must be symmetric or unsymmetric, whether it must be a ballistic movement or a slow movement. So all those principles can be listed here or are listed here. So the third point is related to the movement of the arms. The motions of the arm must be made in opposite and symmetrical direction and must be made simultaneously. Hand and body motions should be confined to the lowest classification with which it is possible to perform the work satisfactorily. So we can, hand and body motions must be confined to lowest classification, means wherever we find our hands to be comfortable. Now suppose I am standing here. This is my own perception about the lowest classification. Now suppose these are the, as per my height, this is the level of the dais I feel I am feeling comfortable. Now suppose this is at this level, I may not feel that comfortable putting my hands like this. So we must try to adjust the hands or the limbs or the body in its lowest classification. Hand and body motions should be confined to the lowest classification with which it is possible to perform the work satisfactorily. Then momentum should be employed to assist the worker wherever possible. One of the examples can be that when you are running a sprint or a fast 100-200 meter race or a quick race of 100, 200 or 400 meter, usually you will see that there is a starter equipment which is used by the runners. So it gives a impulse or it gives a start to the runner or gives the momentum to the runner to have a quick start. So that those type of equipment, if possible, can be given as assistive devices to the workers so that it can help them to perform their task in a better manner and reduce their fatigue. So momentum must be employed to assist the workers wherever possible, and it should be used or it should be reduced to a minimum if it must be overcome by the muscular effort. If there is a opposite effect happening, then it must be avoided. Ballistic movements are faster, easier and more accurate than the restricted or controlled movement. So if we see, if we controlled movement means if I have to keep my hand straight like this or straight, this is a controlled movement, I will feel more fatigued or more tired after some time. But if it is a random movement, I am putting my hands randomly on somebody's shoulder, it is a kind of a curved movement, so my hand may not get tired that easily. So basically the curved movements or the ballistic movements, if we are picking the things in a ballistic manner, easier, but if we do it slowly, maybe it is more tiresome. Work must be arranged to permit an easy and natural rhythm wherever possible. So natural rhythm, if you see here example, the person can stand and perform, so this is better way of supporting the task instead of a person bending down and doing the work. So work must be arranged to permit an easy and natural rhythm wherever possible. Eye fixations must be as few and as close as possible. So if I am working, if suppose the simple example can be given, if I am typing something on the computer by looking at a book, so the book and the screen must or the keyboard must not be at a distance, so that the eyeball movement must be restricted to the minimum within a close range only, because if I have to change the eyeball movement to a maximum possible level, the eyes will get tired. So the eye fixations must be as few and as close as possible. Now the first thing is how the human body must be used. We have seen the use of the hands, the arms, the movement of the hands must be symmetrical, ballistic movement, eye fixation. So if all these principles are kept in mind while we are designing the work for the worker, automatically he will feel less tired, the fatigue will be less, the trauma can be avoided when he is doing a repetitive task, and will help us to achieve the work or to perform the work in a more effective manner. Then second is the arrangement of the workplace, that how the workplace must be arranged so that the work can be done in the most productive manner. So quickly we will see, there should be definite and fixed place for all tools and materials. So this is not only relevant to the industry, this is relevant to our lives also. So our toothbrush must be at a particular place, our clothes must also be at a particular place. There can be a space for keeping the socks, there can be a space for keeping the handkerchiefs. So there can be specific place for specific things. Same is true in the industry also. So there must be a definite and fixed place for all tools and materials. Tools, materials and controls should be located close to the point of use. So if I am using it as a pen, and if it is put at this point, every time I have to use, I have to pick this pen from a distance, that can easily be avoided that if it is placed at a point close to the use. So tools, materials and controls must be located close to the point of use. Gravity feed bins and containers should be used to deliver the material close to the point of use. So we may not require mechanized conveyors. Wherever possible, gravity feed bins can be used. Drop deliveries should be used wherever possible. Simple example can be if you go to a shoe store where the additional shoes are stored on the first floor. More normally you may have experienced that there is a person sitting on the first floor and there is an open window. Through that it drops the maybe a pair of shoes that you want to see. Suppose I go there and tell 7 number, and at the ground floor only 8 number is available. I want to see 7 from the ground only. He will tell that you need 7 number. So they will drop down the box of the shoes. So that is just one simple example of use of the drop deliveries wherever possible. Materials and tools should be located to permit the best sequence of motion. So this is giving one practical example that we can arrange the tools and equipment in such a way that we use them one in the sequence. So we know that for assembling this nut and washer and bolt, this is the sequence that has to be followed, so that the material can be placed in that particular sequence only. Provisions should be made for adequate conditions for seeing and good, I have taken an example of good illumination earlier also. So conditions of seeing, good illumination is the first requirement for satisfactory visual perception. So we must provide good lighting arrangement wherever the work is being done. The height of the workplace and the chair should be preferably arranged so that alternate sitting and standing at work are easily possible. So we can provide such a situation, the table and chair arrangement in such a way that if the worker feels that he is tired of sitting, he can stand up and perform his work, and maybe after some time if he again feels like sitting, so he can sit and start his work. So that kind of flexibility can be designed into the workplace so that the worker feels comfortable. A chair of the type and height to permit good posture should be provided for every worker. So this is related to the ergonomic design of the chair which is to be given to the worker. Now this is related to the workplace, that how the workplace should be. So just to summarize, the lighting arrangement must be proper, the height of the table and the chair must be adjustable, the chair must provide good posture to the worker, drop deliveries must be used. So we have seen that when we are laying out or when we are designing the workplace, what are the principles that we must keep in mind. So and the last part is the designs of tools and equipment. So whatever tools and equipment the worker is using, What are the principles now? The hands should be relieved of all work that can be done more advantageously by a jig, a fixture or a foot operated device. So wherever possible we can distribute the work among the four limbs or among our different limbs. I have already given an example that when we drive a motorbike we can control with both hands and with both feet. So that is given here, that wherever possible we can use our feet to control the machines or equipment. The hand should be relieved of all work that can be done more advantageously by a jig, a fixture or a foot operated device. Two or more tools should be combined wherever possible and whenever possible. Tools and materials should be pre-positioned wherever possible. So there should be a proper location for the tools, which is common with the previous you can say principles also for the design of the workspace or design of the workplace. Tools and materials should be pre-positioned wherever possible. Then where each finger performs some specific movement, such as in typewriting. This is one example, and most of the people these days use mobile phones and the computer keyboards, so such as typewriting. So when we are doing typing on the keyboard, the load should be distributed in accordance with the inherent capabilities of the fingers. Inherent capabilities of the fingers. So when I am typing on the keyboard, I must distribute or make use of the fingers based on the inherent capability of the fingers. Levers, hand wheels and other controls should be located in such positions that the operator can manipulate them with the least change in the body position and with the greatest speed and ease. Now what is the guideline for location of levers or hand wheels and other controls? You can see here. So that the operator can manipulate them with the least change in the body position, this is the first requirement, with the greatest speed, that is the second requirement, and with ease, this is a third requirement. So how? Now a simple example can be when you are driving a car, you have to change the gear. So if you have to bend always to change the gear, you may not feel comfortable for driving 100 or 200 kilometers. But if you see the design of the present day cars, and when a person is driving the car without moving his body or the torso, he can very easily change the gear. If you want to increase the volume of the music being played, there are controls available on the steering wheel only. So without changing the body posture, you can control everything related to the car. You have the accelerator, you have the brake, the clutch in your feet. You have the steering wheel, you can manipulate the things or you can change the song with the controls available on the steering wheel only. You can manipulate the gear without changing your body position. This driving a car is a good example of this principle of motion economy. Levers, hand wheels and other controls should be located so that they can be manipulated without changing the body position. So this is one good example, design of tools and equipment. You can see this is a multi-spindle air operated nut runner. This can tighten all 5 wheel nuts at once. So this is the device. So all 5 wheel nuts can be done in a single operation only. So such type of tools and equipment can be designed which can reduce the human fatigue, which can reduce the worker fatigue. So basically, to summarize what we have covered today, we have tried to cover today the principles of motion economy, and 3 important elements are there, that is how to use the human body, how to design the workplace or the arrangement of the workplace, and thirdly the tools and equipment that is being used by the worker can be designed to make his work easier, simpler, economical, efficient, effective and productive. So if we follow these guidelines or these principles, we can design the workplace as well as the work in such a way that the worker will enjoy the work that he is doing, as I have enjoyed the recording of this session with all of you. Thank you.